Let me tell you about a night that changed two lives forever. A night when a struggling woman got into a taxi with no idea that the driver would refuse her money. And what happened because of that refusal will restore your faith in humanity and prove that kindness always comes back. Are you ready for this story? Good. But before we begin, if you love stories about real people doing extraordinary things, hit that subscribe button right now. Because every week on this channel, we bring you stories that will make you believe in people again. Stories that will change how you see the world. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and let's dive into this incredible true story. It was 11:30 at night in Lagos. Most people were home, safe in their beds. But Grace was standing on the side of the road, alone, desperate and terrified. She had just left the hospital where her sister, her only family, was lying unconscious after a terrible accident. Grace was a salesgirl at a small shop in Surulere. She made 40,000 naira a month, barely enough to pay her own rent and feed herself. But when the hospital called to say her sister had been hit by a motorcycle and needed emergency surgery, Grace didn't hesitate. She emptied her account, every single kobo, 92,000 naira, all her savings, all her hope. She gave it to the hospital. The surgery was done. Her sister would live. But Grace was now completely broke. Not just broke. She had no money for transport home, no money for food tomorrow, no money for next week's rent. Nothing. She stood on that dark road, shaking, trying to figure out what to do. Should she walk? It was 5 kilometers to her house, and the streets were not safe at this hour. Should she call someone? She had no close friends, no family except her unconscious sister. Should she beg? That's when she saw the taxi, an old yellow taxi with a dent on the side, pulling up beside her. The driver, a man in his 50s with kind eyes, rolled down his window. "Sister, you need transport?" Grace's voice broke. I need to get to Surulere, but I don't have money. My sister just had surgery. I gave everything to the hospital. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for wasting your time." She turned to walk away, ashamed, defeated. But the driver called after her. "Wait, get in." Grace turned back, confused. "But sir, I told you. I don't have any money. I heard you. Get in. I'll take you home." Grace couldn't believe it. "Sir, why would you do that? You don't know me. How will you make your money tonight?" The driver smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "Sister, I've been driving this taxi for 23 years. I've made money. I've lost money. But I've learned something important. Some trips are not about money. Some trips are about doing what's right. You just saved your sister's life. The least I can do is get you home safely. Now please get in before I change my mind." Grace got into the taxi, tears streaming down her face. As they drove through the quiet streets of Lagos, the driver, whose name was Joseph, told her his story. 10 years ago, I was in your exact position. My son was sick. Malaria had turned to something worse. The hospital said he needed 200,000 naira for treatment. I didn't have it. I begged everyone. Nobody helped. I was ready to give up. Then a stranger, a woman I had never met, heard about my situation. She came to the hospital and paid everything. Every kobo. She saved my son's life. Grace listened, her heart aching. I asked her why. Joseph continued. "Why would you help a stranger?" You know what she told me? She said, "Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I would help someone else." That woman changed my life. Not just because she saved my son, but because she taught me that kindness is not about what you have. It's about what you choose to do with what you have. Joseph pulled up outside Grace's apartment building. He turned to her with that same gentle smile. "So tonight, sister, I'm paying it forward. You saved your sister. Now let me help you get home safely. No money needed. Just promise me one thing." "Anything," Grace whispered. "When you have the chance, when life puts someone in front of you who needs help, remember this night. Help them. That's all I ask." Grace nodded, unable to speak through her tears. She got out of the taxi, and Joseph drove away into the night. She never got his full name, never got his number, never saw him again. But she never forgot him. 3 years passed. Grace's sister recovered fully. And Grace, through hard work and determination, got a better job. She became a sales supervisor, then a sales manager. Her salary grew from 40,000 to 120,000 naira a month. It wasn't wealth, but it was stability. It was hope. She never forgot Joseph's words. When you have the chance, help someone. So she started small. Every month, she would set aside 5,000 naira. Not much, but something. She would use it to help people. Sometimes it was paying for someone's transport. Sometimes it was buying food for a homeless woman. Sometimes it was helping a colleague whose rent was due. People thought she was crazy. Grace, you're not rich. Why are you giving away your money? Save for yourself. But Grace would just smile. I'm paying it forward. Someone helped me once. Now it's my turn. One day, 5 years after that night with Joseph, Grace was promoted again. This time to regional manager. Her salary jumped to 300,000 naira a month. For the first time in her life, Grace had real money. Not just survival money. Real money. And she knew exactly what to do with it. She started a fund. Nothing official. No paperwork. Just a personal mission. Every month, she would set aside 50,000 naira. She would go to hospitals, quietly asking nurses and doctors if there were patients who couldn't afford treatment. And she would pay for them, anonymously. No names. No credit. Just help. In 3 years, Grace paid for 27 surgeries. 27 strangers got to live because Grace remembered a taxi driver who refused her money. But here's where the story gets incredible. Here's where you'll see that God truly does reward those who give. Last year, Grace's company, a major distribution firm, announced they were looking for a new operations director. It was a massive promotion. Salary, 1.2 million naira a month. Plus car. Plus housing allowance. It was a life-changing position. Grace applied, knowing her chances were slim. There were people with more experience, more connections, more qualifications. But she applied anyway. The interview process was intense. Multiple rounds. Tests. Presentations. Finally, she made it to the last stage. The final interview with the CEO, a man she had never met. On the day of the interview, Grace walked into the CEO's office, nervous but hopeful. The man behind the desk was reviewing her file. He looked up, and their eyes met. Grace's heart stopped. It was him, Joseph, the taxi driver. But he wasn't a taxi driver anymore. The nameplate on his desk read, Mr. Joseph Okafor, Chief Executive Officer. Joseph stared at her, his eyes widening in recognition. Grace? Is that you? The woman from that night at the hospital. Grace could barely breathe. Mr. Joseph? You're the CEO. Joseph stood up, came around the desk, and did something completely unexpected. He hugged her. Right there in the office, this powerful CEO hugged a job applicant. Grace, I have been looking for you for 8 years. 8 years. I never got your full name that night. I never knew how to find you. But I never stopped thinking about you, wondering if you were okay, if your sister survived, if you made it through. But sir, Grace stammered, how did you become this? You were driving a taxi. How? Joseph laughed. Sit down. Let me tell you what happened after that night. He told her everything. 2 weeks after he drove Grace home, Joseph received a call from his cousin in America. The cousin had been trying to reach him for months. Their uncle had died and left Joseph an inheritance. $3 million. $3 million that Joseph knew nothing about because the uncle had lost touch with the family years ago. Overnight, Joseph went from taxi driver to millionaire. He invested wisely, started businesses, grew his wealth. Within 5 years, he had built a distribution empire. But he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot that night when he chose kindness over profit. Grace, Joseph said, his voice emotional. Do you know why I refused your money that night? Because earlier that same day, I had received the call about the inheritance. I didn't even tell you. I was still processing it. I was driving that taxi on my last night, saying goodbye to that life. And God put you in my path. A woman who had just given everything to save her sister. I knew in that moment that my wealth was a test. Would I still be kind even when I didn't need the money? Would I still help even when there was no benefit to me? He paused, tears in his eyes. You passed your test, Grace, when you gave everything for your sister. I passed mine when I drove you home for free. And now look at us. Both blessed. Both here. Both living proof that kindness is never wasted. Grace was sobbing now. Sir, I don't deserve this position. There are more qualified people. Stop, Joseph said firmly. I've read your file. I know what you've been doing. The hospitals you've been helping. The surgeries you've paid for. 27 people, Grace. 27 strangers are alive because you remembered one taxi ride. You think I don't know? I know everything because I've been doing the same thing. And one of the hospitals you've been helping, it's the same one I support. The nurses told me about a woman who comes every month to pay for surgeries. They described you. I knew it was you. I've been trying to find you for 2 years. He sat back down at his desk, wiping his eyes. The job is yours, Grace. Not because of that night 8 years ago, but because of who you became after. You took a moment of kindness and turned it into a lifetime of giving. That's the kind of person I want leading my operations. That's the kind of character that builds companies. That's the kind of heart that changes the world. Today, Grace is the operations director of one of Nigeria's largest distribution firms. She makes 1.2 million naira a month. She drives a company car, lives in a company house. But she hasn't changed. Every month, she still sets aside money. Not 5,000 anymore. Not 50,000. Now, she sets aside 200,000 naira. Every single month. She has paid for 138 surgeries in the last 3 years. 138 families got to keep their loved ones because Grace never forgot a taxi driver who refused her money. And Joseph? He has made Grace his partner in a foundation they started together. The Pay It Forward Foundation. They don't advertise. They don't seek recognition. They just quietly help people who have given everything to save someone they love. Last month, Grace went back to that same spot where Joseph picked her up 8 years ago. She stood there at 11:30 at night, remembering. A taxi pulled up. Sister, you need transport? Grace smiled. She got in, and when they reached her destination, she handed the driver an envelope. Inside was 50,000 naira. What's this? The driver asked, confused. 8 years ago, a taxi driver refused my money when I had nothing. He told me to pay it forward. So I'm paying it forward to you. No need to pay me back. Just promise me that when you have the chance, you'll help someone else. That's all I ask. The driver stared at the money, then at Grace, tears forming in his eyes. I don't know what to say. My daughter needs school fees. I've been so worried. This is an answer to prayer. It's not from me, Grace said gently. It's from a taxi driver named Joseph who taught me that some trips are not about money. Some trips are about doing what's right. Remember that. And when your time comes, pass it on. So let me ask you something. What will you do with this story? Will you forget it in 5 minutes? Or will you let it change you? Right now, someone near you needs help. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's just a kind word. Will you be there, Joseph? Will you be there, Grace? The world is full of people waiting for someone to refuse their money, to choose kindness over profit, to see them as human beings worthy of help. Be that person. You don't have to be rich. Joseph wasn't rich when he helped Grace. Grace wasn't rich when she started helping others. They just chose kindness even when it cost them something. Before you leave this video, I need you to do 4 things. First, hit that like button if this story moved you. Second, share this video with someone. Maybe they need hope. Maybe they need a reminder to be kind. Third, drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever had a Joseph in your life? Someone who helped you when you had nothing? Tell me your story. I read every single comment. And fourth, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because every week we bring you stories that remind you why humans are worth believing in. Remember Grace standing on that dark road with no money. Remember Joseph choosing kindness over profit. Remember that 8 years later, both were rewarded beyond their wildest dreams. Not because they helped expecting a reward, but because God sees everything. Every act of kindness, every sacrifice, every moment you choose love over selfishness. Your Joseph moment is coming. Your Grace moment is coming. The question is, will you recognize it? Will you choose correctly? Until next time, be someone's Joseph. Refuse to let money stop you from doing what's right. Be someone's Grace. Remember kindness even when you have nothing. Because I promise you, I absolutely promise you, what you give away never really leaves. It comes back, always, multiplied, in ways you cannot imagine. Now go. Be the miracle someone is praying for today.